What would be your top tip for someone that is thinking about starting a business to make sure that it's a successful one?
I'm not going to stand up because I am in my undies. So, and I do spend a lot of time business at the top, party at the bottom, especially in lockdown. It's a really hard one, but I think particularly since starting the podcast and having so many different people who have experienced success and different versions of success in so many different industries at so many different age groups and so many different structures of business, and not even business. I think even in my own podcast, I started sort of being a proponent of leave corporate, stop working for the man and start your own business. But I realized very quickly, some people hate running a business. Some people's joy is not wearing all the hats and being distracted by doing the postage, the admin, the taxes. Like, it's actually quite consuming. And if your joy is your one talent, sometimes the actual minutia of running a business day to day can distract you from the one reason why you are employed, because you're so good at that one thing. And I've seen people think that the answer to a joyful life is having the flexibility over your time that you have when you're running your own business. And then it consumes them so much that they go back because they want to be employed by someone where their role is clearly delineated. They are there for their one talent and skill. They deliver it in an unfiltered, unburned way, and then they go home. And I think the most important thing in business is not doing it just for the sake. Don't reverse engineer the lifestyle that you want. You want to be an entrepreneur, so let's force an idea that fits into making me a business person. Find a gap. I think find a gap that actually exists, that you might have experienced or that someone you know has experienced, so that you're intimately acquainted with that gap, and go from there. Because I think if your heart isn't in it, it is exponentially more difficult than I ever thought it would be. The stress is so much more than I thought. M&A law, people are like, oh God, that's such a hard job. I'm like, you have no idea how easy it was compared to running your own business. I just rocked up, sat down, did my work and left. Whereas, you're all the responsibility for your livelihood is on your shoulders, for your staff's livelihood is on your shoulders, for all the decisions. I think the way to make a business succeed is make sure that you want the business to succeed. Because some people go into it and they want the end result of the lifestyle, but they're not there because they want to run a business that's going to be a successful business. So that's the first step. And then the next thing is, I think I talk a lot in my book about blinkers. In this day and age, not just in our personal lives, but in business as well, the minute details of what everyone else is doing in every area of their business and their life are more visible to us than they ever have been, which puts so much pressure on you to be like, they release an EDM every week, so I should, because we're in a similar industry, or they do it 5 times a week and blah, blah, blah. But firstly, you never know. You all have different funding structures. Some people can't afford to pay someone to do it 5 days a week. Some people's audiences wouldn't even read it 5 days a week, but we spend too much time looking outward. But I think you get real-time data from your audience about what works and what doesn't, and that's all you need to focus on. And if you make decisions based on that, then I think you'll go a lot further than if you're just copying kind of what everyone else is doing. Obviously look outwardly for inspiration, but if it gets to just because you can't make a decision for yourself, look back to your community. They're pretty vocal. Consumers are pretty vocal and demanding these days. They'll tell you what they want. They'll tell you what isn't working. So if you can have a really clear channel of communication and then base your decision-making around your scenario, I think that will get you further.
Yeah, I think that the market is always giving you feedback. It doesn't matter how big your audience is, and especially if you're in the early days, it's sometimes it's even easier if it's smaller because you can refine what you're doing. And that was one of the things that I love. I'm a tinkerer, so I love to change processes and systems and ways of explaining things and different stuff. So when I started my business, people were generally pretty happy to give you their opinion, and I think a lot of people actually really appreciate being asked for their feedback. So it can be a good way to understand the impact, because we get so focused on what you're doing and you're in the echo chamber, and then it's like, oh yeah, give yourself a pat on the back, such a great idea, but it doesn't always come across to someone that doesn't have all of the thought process that's been through the whole journey that you have. So I think a solid tip.